Assalamualaikum. My name is Muhammad Syahmi bin Syabri. I'm from class D1BA 1183A. So today I will talk about the macroeconomic problem in Singapore. So introduction. Topic that be given to our group is macroeconomic problem in Singapore that been affected by COVID-19 and how to overcome the problem. Macroeconomic focus on change in economic output, inflation, and unemployment. The purpose of this report to know how COVID-19 affect economy of Singapore. This report also has information of inflation and unemployment of Singapore during COVID-19. And we also did some research on concept of inflation and unemployment. When inflation is high, unemployment is low, so it's gonna be the same. When inflation is low, the employment gonna be high. This will make a difficult challenge for government of Singapore or any other country to control it. Why unemployment sound like a positive to economy, but if unemployment too low, it will drive up inflation problem to the country. So we make a research on macroeconomic problem in Singapore during COVID-19 and give a way to overcome the problem.
Hello and Assalamualaikum. My name is Muhammad Zikry bin Muhammad Zaini and I'm from D1BA 1183A. Now, I would like to talk about the overview of the country's population. A component of the global COVID-19 coronavirus disease pandemic of 2019, which is brought on by coronavirus 2 that causes the severe acute respiratory syndrome, is the COVID-19 pandemic in Singapore. The first case in Singapore was formally confirmed on January 23, 2020. Next, regarding national income of Singapore, the COVID-19 pandemic significantly damaged the global economy in 2020. Singapore's economy did not escape the worst full-year recession since independence. Throughout the year, the economy had to deal with supply and demand side shock. So, in addition, Singapore's main economy sector donation. The importance of the service sector, also referred to as the tertiary sector, to Singapore's economy is demonstrated by the rising share of export of service. Singapore service exports were expanding steadily before the start of COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. Notably, during that time, the growth of export of goods had consistently lagged behind that of service. Singapore's export of service are anticipated to increase in 2022.
So next is main discussion. I will explain about the effect of inflation and unemployment in the Singapore. During the pandemic of COVID-19, the unemployment in Singapore has risen to around 4.1% in 2020 from 3.1% in 2019. For other economies, this would be considered overemployment, but Singapore may have a lower natural unemployment rather than other economies. Overemployment is bad because when there are not enough workers, firm or company are forced to hire anyone who is available at that time. If this thing happens, it will lead to lower productivity because workers are not getting the job they are best suited. So company may also have to offer wages that so high and also rise in price and to a higher inflation. Singapore seasonally adjusts unemployment rate at 2.0% in 2022, matching the flash data, while edging down from 2.1%. This was the lowest jobless rate since 2016. As the economy reopened, some 1,120 workers were laid off, up from all-time low of 830. With retrenchment trending higher with restructuring in Information and Communications. Monetary Authority of Singapore's, or as known MAS, and Ministry of Trade and Industry, MTI, core inflation is expected to stay elevated in the next few quarters before slowing more reasonably in the second half of 2023. As the tight labour market here eases and global inflation moderates, said MAS and MTI, labour costs are expected to increase further in the near term alongside robust costs to consumer amid resilient demand, they say. Increase in car and accommodation costs are also expected to stay firm in the upcoming quarters amid tight certificate or entitlement quotas forecast and strong demand for rental housing. So that's all for this explanation.
So I will talk about the impact of coronavirus to the Singapore. During the pandemic of COVID-19, the unemployment in Singapore has risen to around 4.1% in 2020 from 3.1% in 2019. So we can see a little bit change from 2019 to 2020. For other economies, this would be considered overemployment, but Singapore may have a lower natural unemployment rate than other economies. Overemployment is bad because when there are not enough workers, firm or company are forced to hire anyone who is available at that time. Even though they are not qualified for the job, they will hire anyone at that time. If this thing gonna happen, it will lead to a lower productivity because workers are not getting the job that are best suited. Company may also have to offer wage that's so high and also rise in price and to higher inflation. So that about unemployment. So we move to inflation problem. The recovery pace from COVID-19 pandemic has been delayed by several problems to the world global value and supply chain. Already one of the most expensive city to live in, Singapore headline consumer price index or overall inflation reached 5.4% in April 2022. The main core inflation is accommodation and transport that raised to 3.3%. The increase was driven by higher inflationary pressure for food, that is 4.1%, retail 1.6%, and gas and electricity price 19.7%.
Hi and Assalamualaikum. My name is Muhammad Aidil Shaizi bin Muhammad Zaimi, but you may call me Syai. And today I would like to present to you my ECO120 assignment, which is monetary and fiscal policies to overcome the problem of inflation and unemployment in Singapore. The question is, how does Singapore overcome the problem of inflation and unemployment? Well, Singapore uses a combination of monetary and fiscal strategies to combat its problems with unemployment and inflation. In order to minimize the financial burden of the public health measures implemented in response to the epidemic, the Monetary Authority of Singapore, but we may call it MAS, and the other government agency developed a clear policy response in the face of the worst net recession Singapore has ever faced, by offering businesses and individuals instead financial comfort. The considerable and quick counter-cyclical support also sought to prevent the severe shock from having a long-term negative impact on the economy. Because fiscal policy was anticipated to be the primary counterbalance to the decline in incomes during the crisis, monetary policy played a supporting in stabilizing economic activity. As a result of China's isolation of Hubei province and the emergence of COVID-19 cases there, the outlook for the Singaporean economy began to deteriorate in January 2020. Since the October 2019 monetary policy statement, the trade-weighted Singapore dollar nominal effective exchange rate has been hovering near the upper storage bound of the policy band. The MAS clarified on February 5 that the monetary policy stand remained unchanged despite the deteriorating outlook for growth and inflation. Well, for fiscal policy, the Singaporean government promptly implemented a series of budgetary measures to mitigate the impact on the nation's economy as a result of the pandemic-induced unprecedented crisis. 4 budgets, a ministerial statement totaling over 100 billion or about 20% of nominal GDP, were unveiled between February and August 2020. This was broken down into direct fiscal injections totaling 70.9 billion % of GDP and capital for loan guarantees totaling $22 billion, 4% of GDP. About 2/3 of direct fiscal injections were utilized to lessen the impact of revenue losses on enterprises to pay subsidies and other cost-cutting initiatives. The preservation of jobs and prevention of a more rapid rise in employment have been major objectives of the relief efforts. The SGU United Positions and Skills package, a public-private partnership, was launched with the goal of generating internships and training opportunities for the first time and mid-career jobs searchers, as well as 100,000 new jobs. In accordance with the program, the government will cover a percentage of salaries and training benefits for newly established positions, enabling businesses to continue employing at lower wage rates. The Jobs Growth Incentive was recently introduced in August 2020. The government will cover between 25 and 50% of the first $5,000 in gross compensation for all new local employment for a period of 1 year under this scheme. Retailers and food, beverage companies that embrace invoicing and digital payment solutions receive cash bonuses. Small firms have access to additional ready-made digitalization solutions as well as financial support for their adoption. During school closures, students receive digital learning resources to support independent study at home. Well, that is for the fiscal policy that were done by the Singapore during the COVID-19. Thank you.
In conclusion, most industries are expected to be negatively impacted by the COVID-19 outbreak. The success of Singapore's domestic economy in the remaining quarters of the year will also depend on how well we can resume the economic activity as we leave the circuit breaker phase without a resurgence of illnesses in the community. Singaporeans must continue to adhere the safe distance keeping rules, which call for limiting their social interaction and movement. Singapore will be free of the epidemic if everyone is concerned about this crucial issue and works together to combat it.